It is a common fact that Gurukulis say Ekadashi means potatoes. Sometimes it feels like the only purpose of Ekadashi is the day where we eat potatoes, but that totally misses the point. Ekadashi is much more than just eating potatoes. There's much more depth and there's much more dimension to Ekadashi, which I shall explain here in the video. Basically, there's 3 different reasons why we follow Ekadashi, why it's important to practice it. The first reason is for health benefits, is for our body and for our mind Ayurvedically. I'll explain how that works. Another reason is for, sin benefit, or if you believe in the concept of sin or pop, or what does that have to do with Ekadashi, the don'ts, the fears, from a spiritual kind of religious side of things. And then there's the Bhakti aspects. Why does Bhakti have us follow Ekadashi? What does Ekadashi have to do with Bhakti? Which is the real reason for us people in the Gaudiya line of why we follow Ekadashi. So it's not just to eat potatoes, but it's for those 3 reasons. So we'll start with the first reason, the health benefits of Ekadashi. As we know, we've got day and we've got night, but less apparent to our consciousness, less apparent to our mind is the lunar cycles, that there's the waxing moon and there's the waning moon. Now the Vedic philosophy tells us that that the moon moves in cycles and affects our body and affects the earth in different ways. Perhaps you're familiar with the concepts of astrology or astronomy, or even if you just know that the magnetic pull of the moon affects agricultural cycles, but not only agricultural cycles, also affects the water on the earth, the tides. I live by the ocean. Here, the tides move in and out according to the moon cycles. So what the ancient science of Ayurveda tells us is that the pull of the moon's gravitational pull also affects the water inside of our body, also affects the water inside of our being. So if we eat foods that have high water content, or certain foods that are difficult for the body to digest at this time because of the effect of the moon in that specific time of the month, it can mess up the energetic balance in our body and mess up our digestion. So one of the extracurricularly, or one of the secondary reasons of why we follow Ekadashi is to maintain that balance, that harmony, that health in our body. Another thing also is a lot of science now is validating the importance of fasting and intermittent fasting. When you eat, your body puts a lot of energy to go into digestion and does not have that energy to supply in other places. But we need to eat to get energy, of course. That's why we eat. But it's important to take certain times out of the month or certain times out of the year to do fasting, to give our stomach, to give our digestive system a time to relax, a time to have a break. And by relaxing, then it can improve our health. So number 1 benefit or reason for following Ekadashi is health purposes. Now, the other reason for following Ekadashi, if you believe in the Vedic scriptures, is the idea of sin, or the idea of the dangers, the bad things that can happen to you other than your health by following Ekadashi. Once upon a time, the Supreme Lord Narayan, not exactly Brajendra Nandan Shamasundar, but I'm not going to get into the difference here right now, but the Supreme Lord God was traveling around the universe, and he went to visit one of his dear devotees, one of his dear disciples, followers, who is Yamaraj Maharaj. There are known to be several Mahajans, or great personalities in the universe, and one of them is Yamaraj, and he is the king of the hellish planetaries. He's the king of the people down there, the hellish places where you go if you do sin. So Krishna Narayan, he went to go visit Yam Maharaj, and when he visited Yam Maharaj, he heard all these people screaming, all these people crying, all this pain, all this suffering inside people, and his heart began to melt. And when his heart melted, from his left side manifested one Devi, or one goddess, one lady who was Ekadashi Devi. And then Krishna, the God, Divine Narayan, he said, whoever follows this Ekadashi will never have to come and suffer in this place. Will never have to suffer in this hellish planetary system. You won't have to go through that if you follow this. So all the residents of hell began to take shelter of Ekadashi Devi, and they were immediately delivered. They were immediately liberated from following, from all their sinful activities. And I remember one Vaishnava was explaining this, one sannyasi, and I asked him the question. I said, well, how did they just follow Ekadashi and get delivered immediately? All of a sudden in hell, they're like eating rice and eating chapatis or something, and or sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And then how did they actually follow Ekadashi to be able to do that. And the Vaishnava explained something very important, which is key for us when we're practicing to follow Ekadashi. He said to take their sharan. We were speaking in Bengali. What sharan means, Haribol, Madhusudan, what sharan means was taking shelter of Ekadashi Devi, following under her guidance, following under her refuge. So this leads us to one key point, is that the purpose of following Ekadashi is we are taking shelter, we're submitting ourselves to Ekadashi Devi. One of the ways in which we do this is by restricting our diet to having no beans, to having no grains, to just eating fruits and roots, or completely nirjal. At the end of this, I'll also explain how to follow Ekadashi properly and what's the actual proper process beyond just the food restrictions, because there's more to it. But basically, they took shelter of Ekadashi Devi and they began to become liberated. Yam Maharaj, the king of hell, the king of hell, someone just sent me a message here, but yes. So Yam Maharaj, what he did is he took his keys for the hellish planets and brought them to Narayan and said, okay, now everybody is following you, everybody is practicing Ekadashi, no one else is coming to hell, I have lost my job, I am out of commission, I am out of work, nothing to do. And then Krishna said, okay, well, that brings the universe back out of balance. So then they said, okay, and then also what happened was Papa Purush, the personification of sinful activities. His name's Papa Purush, the man of sin. Papa means sin, Purush means man. Sin man, whoever he is, the personification of sinful activities, came to Krishna and said, okay, now where do I go? No one's taking refuge in me. Then he said, okay, you can go and take refuge in grains and beans and at this time of Ekadashi. So that's why they say, if you believe in this, but that's why they say that by following Ekadashi, you get by not following Ekadashi, by eating grains and by eating things, then the same sin of killing your mother, of killing your father, of killing your guru, the same sin of many different types of sin of killing cows is all present inside grains on this day. So one of the reasons why we don't eat grains and why we do follow Ekadashi is we don't want to get all those sinful activities. We don't want to associate with Papa Purush at this time, and we want to take shelter of Ekadashi Devi so we can be liberated from our sins and not go to hell. But when I practice bhakti, I don't like to do it out of fear. I think that is a low motivation for practicing spiritual life. Spiritual life is so much more than just being scared and running away from sin and saying, if you eat grains, you're going to go to hell. And that perhaps is true, that has its place, but there's a much more beautiful, much more sweet, much more powerful dimension to Ekadashi and dimension to pretty much anything that we practice, everything that we do in our spiritual life. And that is about the ability to be able to bring bhakti in our heart. Bhakti is something which is very soft, very tender. It's a natural expression of the soul in loving relation. Now, here's something that I found extremely surprising, was that even though it is our duty, even though it is our dharma, our inherent birthright, it's who we are by nature to live in a bhaktiful connection with God, we have zero power of that bhakti coming inside of our heart. It's like having a dry piece of wood that is meant to be on fire. It's meant to be burning in passionate love, but by itself, it has no power to be able to catch flame, to be able to get on fire. Bhaktastu bhagavat bhakta sangena parijayate. One of my favorite scriptures says that the only way in which bhakti comes and sits inside of the heart is through the association of a bhakta, or the association of someone who has bhakti inside of their heart is how bhakti can ignite in us. The example of how I like to see is if you have a dry piece of wood, I didn't make up this example, it comes from our acharyas. You have a dry piece of wood, if you put that in the association of a piece of wood that's on fire, then the fire from the other piece of wood will inspire the fire that exists inside of the wood. I don't know if I'm explaining this properly, but it will basically catch fire to the other piece of wood and have that natural bhakti come and express from that piece of wood. So basically we get bhakti from somewhere where bhakti exists. We get bhakti from other Vaishnavas. That's why the key, the most important factor in advancing in bhakti is association with Vaishnavas. But there are 7 billion people on this planet. Why is it that some people get the association of Vaishnavas. Some people can associate, and some people have zero chance, zero opportunity to associate with Vaishnavas. In the same verse, it also says, Sukriti Purva Sanchitai, that what affords us kind of the money that gives us the ability to associate with Vaishnavas, to be able to catch the fire of bhakti in our hearts, is Sukriti. Su means good, kriti means activity. In other words, doing pious credits, doing auspicious, getting sukriti things. And then that gives us the association with Vaishnavas. So what does this have to do with Ekadashi and potatoes and the lack thereof? The first thing is, I remember when we were practicing Nirjala Ekadashi, which many people are maybe familiar with. There's Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi, which is one very, very special Ekadashi in the middle of the summer, where if you follow Ekadashi properly, like I'll explain at the end of this, which is, Nirjala, completely fasting and everything, you get so much more benefit. So I was with Gurudev and I was with his entourage and the Vaishnavas, and I was thinking, why is Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi so special? And I remember my Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, he was saying that actually all Ekadashis are equally powerful as Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi. Now that doesn't mean Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi is less powerful than we thought it means. It just means all the other Ekadashis are equally as powerful. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and I'll explain that in a second. I'll get back to that. So, is equally as powerful, and what does that mean? Is by following Ekadashi, it is the most, or one of the most powerful ways of bringing turbo powerful amounts of sukriti into our life. So by following Ekadashi, whether you do it knowingly or unknowingly, whether you do it properly to the highest standards or not, you will get so much more sukriti, which is the money that gives you the association of Vaishnavas that causes bhakti to come in your heart. You'll get so much more sukriti than practicing anything else, any other process of doing sukriti. You can chant japa till the cows come home. You can do other things, but by following Ekadashi, so much more sukriti will come. But Ekadashi is even better than being a super turbo powered sukriti pill. Ekadashi is so much more powerful than that Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains. Ekadashi titi bhakti janani jotone palana kori. Says that Ekadashi titi, Madhavi titi, is bhakti janani. Janani means the mother of bhakti. In other words, by following Ekadashi has the ability to give birth to bhakti inside of our heart, because Ekadashi Devi is Bhakti Devi. Ekadashi Devi is this Swarup Shakti. Ekadashi Devi has bhakti. So by following Ekadashi, by taking shelter of Ekadashi Devi, she can ignite that bhakti inside of our heart, and that is the reason why we follow Ekadashi. We don't follow Ekadashi just because of the health benefits like I described before. We don't follow it just because we're scared of sin, because that's a very low motivator for bhakti. We don't follow it just to get sukriti, but we follow to get bhakti to be realized inside of the heart. Now, we're not the first people to do this. Actually, once upon a time, the mother of Krishna and the father of Krishna, Yashoda Baba and Nanda Baba, in their previous life, they followed Mahadwadashi Vrata, which for purposes right now is basically Ekadashi, even though there's more detail to it, which maybe we don't have to explain here. They followed Mahadwadashi Vrata, which is basically Ekadashi, and by doing that, the benefit that they got was they got Krishna to be born as their child. Krishna was born actually in the womb of Mother Yashoda to Nanda Baba in Vrindavan, and they got this they got this by following Ekadashi. So we follow Ekadashi, so Krishna and all the Vrajavasis and all the Vaishnavas and everyone can come and be realized inside of our heart. So how do we follow Ekadashi? Real Ekadashi Vrata, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, is actually a 3-day event. We follow the day before, we follow the day after, and the day of Ekadashi. And one thing is Krishna Artha Kila Bhog Tyag, which is an important part of our spiritual process, is where we give up our mundane sense gratification as an offering, or as a way of serving, Krishna, as the way of serving the Vaishnavas. So that's when we're giving up foods that we enjoy, we're giving up things that will gratify our senses, to say, okay, now we're going to be more detached. Let's absorb in the world every day of the week. Every day of the month, where how do we make money? How do we take care of our children? How do we be dutiful? How do we live in this world? What's my body need for our health? And it's always me, world. Ekadashi is a day where we can take our consciousness now and offer it unto Krishna, and to offer it unto the divine. We can say, no, I'm not thinking about my eating. I'm not thinking about just my body. Now it's the time where it's the most important thing, where I'm giving extra energy. I'm giving extra time for serving Krishna. On Ekadashi, I chant more. On Ekadashi, I do more puja. On Ekadashi, I bathe my deities. On Ekadashi is when I come together with the Vaishnavas. Okay, so Mahamantra Siddhi Prabhu says, I disagree. Lord Chaitanya said that Kali Yuga, there's no other way than chanting the holy names. I completely agree with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but everything in Bhakti has depth and purpose and dimension. I like bringing up questions like this, though. First of all, is not all chanting is created equal. If someone chants, then maybe they're doing it for musical purposes. I'm chanting, what's the music, what's the music? Someone might be chanting, or Helam, this is Namabas, saying, oh, those Hare Krishnas. They're also chanting, they get some benefit, but that chanting is not the same as when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Gambhira. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting in Gambhira, and he just says, Hare, just one small little bit of the mantra, and he gets completely absorbed in mood and falls unconscious for 18 hours, 20 hours, completely absorbed in the transcendental realm. How do you say? Nama Nami Abed. Krishna and his name are non-different. So if we were actually able to chant properly, we would just say Krishna, and you'd be immediately transported to Goloka Vrindavan. But if we have many aparads, if we have many faults inside of our heart, we're unable to chant properly. And our power of our chanting is very weak. This is the process of initiation. We associate with a guru. We associate with a Vaishnav. They chant their mantra, and by hearing their mantra, it gives our mantra more powerful. This is the reason why we chant every day. Otherwise, we can only chant one time and you're completely liberated. No need to chant again because everything is there just in the power of one name. But we practice every day, 16 rounds a day, 4 rounds, however many rounds a day you do. We chant again and again and again to practice and perfect our chanting. So there are many other processes in the bhakti process that help us perfect our chanting so we can chant properly. So when we chant, there can actually be power, actually be shakti and beauty in that. And those things are manifold, which we're not going to explain now, but Ekadashi is one of those. So when I said that Ekadashi will give you much more sukriti than chanting, I was referring for someone who is on the lower stages, someone who is not seeing Krishna when they're chanting, someone who's not doing this, because what you're doing in Ekadashi is you're taking shelter of the Vaishnav. You're taking shelter of the Vaishnavs. You're doing sadhu Sanga, and that will infuse your chanting with so much more power. And that brings us back to what I was just explaining. On Ekadashi, so we do a Krishna Artha Akila Bhog Tyag. We say, okay, I'm going to give up my sense gratification. I'm going to give up my enjoyment. I'm not going to focus on me. I'm going to focus on Krishna. And then when we do it, then our chanting has more power. Our offering has more power. It gets kind of like, it's like a maximizer. It's you get more interest. You get more bang for your buck by chanting on Ekadashi, by doing sadhu Sanga on Ekadashi. I remember being in India, in West Bengal, doing Ekadashi properly, all the devotees coming to the temple room, then you staying up all night practicing Ekadashi, and doing Kirtan and Harikatha all night. They say actually there's lots of things that break Ekadashi which we don't know. If you get cut, that breaks Ekadashi. If you think of grains, that breaks Ekadashi. There's so many different strong, strict standards for following Ekadashi properly. And basically, the purpose, the essence of all of those regulations is that we're taking our time and our energy and our consciousness and absorbing it in Krishna more. There's one beautiful verse from the Bhagavad Gita which I think a lot of devotees would benefit by knowing, and I remember the English, what Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada says, all the purposes served by a small well are immediately served by the great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the imports of the Veda are I forget the exact word, served, but basically by someone who knows the meaning behind them. So basically what that verse in the Bhagavad Gita is saying, that there's an underlying principle behind the rules. So the underlying principle behind following Ekadashi is that we absorb our body, mind, and consciousness in Sangha, in association of Ekadashi Devi, in association of Vaishnavas, and we offer ourselves and serve Krishna, and then we get more turbo power. And we're lucky that Ekadashi is now, this is something that I found very surprising, right? Because human psychology says that if something is rare, if something is scarce, it's more valuable. So we think days like Janmashtami, or we think days like these other holy days, because they only come once a year, they're very powerful. But if you associate with Vaishnavas, you realize that Ekadashi is more powerful than many, many other holy days. Many other holy days, even other appearance days of Vishnu Tattva. Vaishnavas, if you have a choice to either respect Ekadashi or respect Varaha Dwadashi, Varaha Day, who's incarnation of Krishna, who's Vishnu Tapa, his birthday that comes out once a year, Vaishnavas choose to follow Ekadashi because she is Vaishnav. That is more important to us. Ambarish Maharaj, he chose to respect Ekadashi over respecting Durvasa Rishi, who is actually an incarnation of Shiva. Durvasa Rishi, I stayed in his ashram. We have Durvasa Tila, ashram of Durvasa Rishi across the river from Mathura, out in the villages. A lot of people don't know. My Guru Maharaj has a temple there. I stayed many months there. So we studied a lot about Durvasa. He's incarnation of Shiva. Very, very powerful. Tapasvi, yogi, very powerful. Big fiery demon comes from his dreadlock when he sends it after Durvasa Rishi. But Ambarish Maharaj chose to respect Ekadashi Devi over this. So we're so lucky. Ekadashi Devi is more powerful than many of these appearance days. Ekadashi Devi is more powerful than many other holy days. And she's also more merciful because every 2 weeks, Ekadashi Devi, Bhakti Devi is coming to give us some bhakti and some love inside of our heart. So on this day, I beg you please follow Ekadashi. You please do the food restrictions and also chant more and do this and come into association. And if you do not know which days are Ekadashi, I have created a Vaishnav calendar, which is basically, it's taking the Vaishnav calendar from Pure Bhakti, and you can have it integrated with Google Calendars, and I'm going to release that soon on your phone, so it's always there in any digital calendar format you have. So I will give that to you in a week or two. I'm still working on making that available for the devotees. But please follow Ekadashi. And also, I just started another group called Virtual Sanga. And send a message. I'll put a link inside this thing after I finish this. Come and join me where I'll be doing some exclusive classes just for the Virtual Sangha group. So invite your friends, invite your Vaishnava friends, and come and join that. Join Virtual Sangha. I'll put a link after in this, and look out for the Ekadashi thing. But for now, take your japa bag, sit in front of your deities, create better special bhakti relationship with the Vaishnavas. And I see for the live thing, there's some people on. Are there any more questions? I'm just going to see. One devotee, I answered Mahamantra Prabhu's questions. If you have any questions or comments, put them in here. Oh, you forgot your tilak, someone says. No, I did not forget my tilak. I have oily skin. So I put on tilak and it gets very faint. Ever since, people tell me this all the time. It's so annoying. Ever since I was 11 years old, I put on full body tilak every time I take a shower, which is like 2 or 3 times a day. And everyone's like, where's your tilak? Where's your tilak? It's like, no, I have my tilak. Okay? It's there. Oh, and actually, let me just have that as an opportunity to be able to share something of value so that you guys can learn about that. Is tilak just the physical presence on side of the body? What is the purpose of tilak? We're putting it on with mantra, and there's a special energetic vibration. So when we're installing tilak on different parts of our body, we're saying Keshav, Narayan, Madhav, Govinda, we're actually installing these different forms of Vishnu on parts of our body, and they don't exist in the mud. It's not just about the clay being attached, but they're brought by mantra and by consciousness, and they come and they resonate on side of our body, having a strong, vibrant being. And then also other reasons for tilak about your consciousness when you're putting on. What's your state of mind in that consciousness? So that's part of it. But yeah, maybe I'll get thicker tilak one day, but I don't think so. It always comes off. Especially, I live in Hawaii. It's hot here, It's very hot. Okay, any other questions? Any other comments? Now I'm just chilling with you people. Hey, share this video. If you're watching, share this video so that other people can also learn about Ekadashi and get the benefits. And come and join a group. It's not potato day. No! Well, you can't eat potatoes, yes. Oh, so one thing about following Ekadashi properly. This is something that there's different standards of following Ekadashi. And the highest standard, like I said, was a 3-day event of following Ekadashi. And on that 3-day event of Ekadashi, you're fasting the day before, you're fasting the day after, and you're doing completely nirjala, which means no water, no anything. Some people even say, even if you swallow your saliva, it breaks Ekadashi. I don't believe with that, but they say that. And that's the proper standard. But then Shastra says some people are weak, some people are incapable, some people are not able to do nirjala fasting of Ekadashi. So there's been some concessions given. Okay, you drink water. And then for some people say, okay, then you just take falahar, which means to eat fruit. So fruit, roots, and dairy, and that. Nowadays in Kali Yuga, we're all messed up physically. We've got electromagnetic fields, you've got genetically modified food, we're so messed up. Like, everything's not organic like it used to be. So I think everyone falls in the sick category, and that's why our acharyas, they say, okay, then we just do falahar, taking fruits and roots and we follow Ekadashi in that way, and that's the process of how we follow Ekadashi. But now even different Vaishnavas have different standards of Ekadashi. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he gave even further concession and gave less restriction than was followed in Gaudiya Math, where he came from, or then was followed through for the concession of fruits and roots, falahar. And he said just no beans and grains, to also eat vegetables. In Gaudiya Math, they don't eat vegetables, so they don't eat spinach, they don't eat tomatoes, they don't eat different vegetables on Ekadashi. I follow this. I don't eat vegetables, only fruits and roots. Some vegetables are considered to be fruits. For example, pumpkin is considered to be a fruit. Gourd vegetables like that are considered to be a fruit because they have the same type of seeds like a fruit and grow on a similar plant, and that's the Vedic classification. But so you choose. Do you want to follow Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada standards? No beans and grains. That's the simplest standard. A little higher standard, you can do just fruits and roots. Little higher standard, just no water. Little higher standard, just water. Then an even higher standard, no water. It's about personal choice, really, about following that. But main thing is to create connection with Ekadashi Devi, because that's how love comes. Okay, anyone else? Yes, Potato Day, but it's Krishna Day too. Yeah, that's true. Actually, should I tell you something? Since this video is about potatoes, I'm going to share with something about potatoes. Potatoes are not Vedic. They did not exist in India before. Jagannath temple in Jagannath Puri, they have the same recipes that they've been cooking for thousands of years, and they have the same thing. There's no potatoes in the cooking, and also no chili inside of the cooking. Can you imagine that? All of India had no chili till the Portuguese came and started trading and brought potatoes and brought chili, and that grew in India. Now that's all they eat in India, potatoes and chili. But it didn't exist before. So really, when they practice Ekadashi, previously there's these other types, alukand, or these kochu. There's these different types of potato root-like vegetables, which are healthier than potatoes, and that's what people would eat on Ekadashi, and I recommend those other types of root vegetables, because if you want to be really strict and really Vedic, then you don't eat potatoes ever, like Jagannath. But I'm biased against potatoes because they're not good for me. They're too much starch, too many carbohydrates. You need to take more proteins. Hare Krishna is only just eat on carbohydrates, so they'll get fat. Okay, what else? Your preaching is very enthusiastic. It's very nice to hear. Jai Gurudev, Jai Ho. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Nice explanation. Thank you. Short. What is the real spiritual meaning of Ekadashi? Gopikanta Prabhu asked. I thought I explained that already. Basically, Ekadashi Devi is a Vaishnavi. Ekadashi Devi is a very powerful, beautiful Vaishnavi, and by associating with her, by taking her shelter, by taking her guidance, Bhakti can come in our heart very, very fast. I remember my Guru Maharaj, he used to say, take your pulse, which Ayurvedically means, measure your health, basically. From Ekadashi to Ekadashi, measure how much are you advancing in Bhakti. And this brings up an interesting point, because a lot of people think that, Bhakti is something that's not measurable. When I die, then I'll experience Bhakti. I'll go back to God after dying. And I always say, death is not a special promotion. It doesn't help bring you closer to Krishna to die. Bhakti is something that you realize now, and you should be able to be experiencing the benefits of Bhakti coming in your heart now at the moment. You should be able to experience that. And our gurus, especially my Guru Maharaj, that's where I heard it from, but I'm sure the other gurus said it too. They said that from every Ekadashi, you measure your progress, you measure results. So then how do you measure your results? Sri Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion says, Kleshagni Shubhada Moksha Laguta Kritsundarananda Vishesha Dharma Shri Krishna Kashanicha Sattva. When you practice Bhakti, basically what happens? So when they explain, there's the Bhakti Lata creeper, or you have the potential of love inside your heart, and the example is of like a creeper that grows, and as you're chanting, as you're following Ekadashi, as you're associating with Vaishnavas, as you're sharing Harikatha, like you could do in virtual Sanga, the Facebook group, join that group with us. Then by practicing all of these things, it's like putting water and growing that creeper. So it's explained that the first two leaves that sprout on the prasad is Kleshagni and Shubhada. So Kleshagni means suffering begins to disappear, and Shubhada, auspiciousness, begins to come in our life. Now, we can give a long class on what this means, but Kleshagni, does our life circumstances change? We know, anybody who's been practicing Bhakti knows that or just being alive, sometimes you have a great time, and sometimes you feel like shit, you feel terrible. You don't feel good in the practice, and you go bad. So really it means it's not so much about changing the external situation, even though that does happen, and Krishna can do it, and he's declared in the Bhagavad Gita that he will preserve what you have and carry what you lack. but also it's more about your relationship to klesha, or your relationship to suffering in the world will begin to change and you will suffer less. And you can do this if you have like a very difficult situation, like I'm dealing with some difficult things right now, and sometimes I can be all caught up in it, and it can be all painful, it can be tough, and it can be scary, and then I can say, wait a minute, there's this bhakti thing, and you sit down and you go into your meditation. I do my Maverick meditation method, right? It's bhakti, same thing, right? Just go little dimension to it, but so you go into chanting, you begin to check to Krishna, and then the problem hasn't changed, but the internal realization, the internal experience of the problem changes. And it's ourself that changes. Tatenu kampam, we begin to experience and relate like this. So that's why we say the first thing, Rupa Goswami says, Kleshagni, that suffering begins to go away. Then Shubhada, auspiciousness begins to come into our life. That means good things begin to happen. That doesn't just mean happiness, and that doesn't just mean money and material things. We don't do bhakti for those things. Those who are Vaishnavas, they do not ask Krishna for this. They do not expect it. That's not where their consciousness is. But really it means we get more sadhu sangha, we get more association with Vaishnavas, we get more opportunities to advance spiritually, and much happiness comes from this. So from Ekadashi to Ekadashi, measure your growth. See how much you're advancing. Okay. We're still on the question and answer thing. Yes, today is Ekadashi. Jai Ho. What other questions do we got here? I think it's more important than not eating grains is to keep your mind and activities fixed to serving Radha and Krishna. But of course, we must follow the rules. What would be... sorry, I can't read. I went to Gurukul anyway. What would be good to do fasting and not think of any seva? Am I wrong? Wait, for what good would it be to do fasting and not think of it or do any seva? Am I wrong, Marge? Kind of, but also Krishna Mantra Prabhu, a little bit wrong, because even like there's the other, in the beginning, I don't know when you came on to this call, I explained that there's different reasons for following Ekadashi. The first reason is just for health benefits. So even if you follow Ekadashi just for the health benefits, you're still getting benefit. The second thing is by doing that, you're avoiding the sin. So the sin, Papa Purusha, I told the whole story. You can go back and watch the beginning of the class. But basically, there's sinful activity which exists inside of the grain. So even if for whatever reason, your job, your family, your reality, you don't actually chant more, you don't remember more, but simply by giving up grains on this day, you are able to, you're avoiding the sin, but even just doing that, you're acknowledging, Ekadashi Devi, and you're offering respect. It's kind of like, Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru, Krishna says, okay, give everything up. If you can't give everything up, then come and the least thing you can do is at least offer your respect. So by not eating grains, at least we're saying, Jai Ekadashi Devi, offer my respect to you. And in that, there is power, there is beauty. But here's something that I found extraordinary. Was Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he said that to his disciples, if you don't stop, you must go out and teach. You must go out and spread the message of Mahaprabhu. You must go out and help people. And if you don't do this because you're tired, it's Ekadashi, and I'm not going to go out and do the seva, he says, I will personally cook you khichdi. Is that what you want me to do? I'll cook you khichdi. I'll cook you grains with my own hands, but do not hold back the mission of Mahaprabhu. Do not hold back that mission. So oftentimes, like I've experienced and associated with very, very advanced Vaishnavas, most of them will eat falahar. They'll take, falahar means fruits and roots. They'll follow Ekadashi like that, but they won't do nirjala. And my experience is that it's a lot of the new people that are all like, I'm going to do fasting of no water and nirjala and get completely absorbed in that. And that's beautiful and that's powerful and that's helpful. But for those Vaishnavas that don't do it, they say, my health and my service to Vaishnavas, to Guru and Krishna is much, much more important than doing a strict Ekadashi following in that regard. So really bhakti, and this is the thing about everything, it's not about the rules and relationships. It's not about the rules and regulations. It's about relationship. What is our relationship with Gurudev? What is our relationship with Vaishnava? And relationship comes from service. So the most important, prominent thing is service in our spiritual path. But like Gurudev one time told me, you have to do everything. So follow Ekadashi and do service. But if you're not going to do extra service, at least follow Ekadashi. And that is very important to do. Okay, what else do we got here? Yes, you're right. I always think of Ekadashi fasting I always do Ekadashi fasting with my friends. TKS, I don't know what TKS, thanks you. means. Okay, well, that's our webcast for today. Thank you. Join the virtual Sanga group. I will be giving classes there sometimes exclusively for the group. So grow it, expand the group for Vaishnavas. If anyone is not a Vaishnav, so to say, or devotee, I've got other group, a meditation group, which is more geared to the outside world, and you can share that with them. And keep your heads up for the on your phone Vaishnava calendar. It's a calendar, goes into your Google Calendars, any software used for calendars. You can have all Ekadashis, all holy days, all Ekadashi according to your time zone set up there. Something cost me quite a bit of money to set up, but I'm offering that to devotees free. I just got to do the technical stuff a little bit more to make it available for you guys. Oh, just when I was about to go, Gopikanta Prabhu says, what about those devotees who suffer and vomit because of fasting, diabetic, and other weakness? I know such persons. They have real difficulty of fasting. Any opinion? Yes, I have an opinion. And I think I kind of covered that before. Is based on your service and based on your health situation, you've got to do accordingly. Shastra does say that you do not need to follow the vratas if you're under the age of 5 years old, or you're over the age of 80, or if you're really sick. So if someone is actually vomiting from following Ekadashi and fasting like that, there is provision in Shastra that they don't need to follow. That is there. At the same time, Ekadashi Vrata is not complete fasting if you're eating fruits and roots. I bet that you can find stuff to eat that you won't vomit out on Ekadashi and still follow Ekadashi Vrata and still be very healthy. And I will give you something, I'll give you some ideas right now in which you can do that. The controversial subject is quinoa. Can you have quinoa on Ekadashi? Is that okay? And some people say no. Some people say it's a pseudo grain. It doesn't officially fall in the grain family, does not count on as a grain. We can eat it on Ekadashi. Then some people say that is the Western classification of grains of not, but we have a different approach to it in the Vedic thing. And if it's the seed of a grass, then we don't eat it because that's a grain as the seed of a grass. So is quinoa Ekadashi or not? Do we eat quinoa or not? And I follow my Guru Maharaj in this. My Guru Maharaj before said quinoa was okay, and he wouldn't eat it because that wasn't really his diet, but he would let the devotees eat it. Then a bunch of devotees said, oh, but quinoa this, and they kept on pestering him about quinoa, and then he said, okay, stop eating quinoa. So he said yes, and then he said no. Either way, it goes. So what I did was I thought, well, now what do? I have two instructions from my guru. Which one do I follow? And I did some research, and I'll tell you my opinion. All Vaishnavas agree that buckwheat is okay. I looked up buckwheat, and buckwheat is a flower, and you look at the plant of buckwheat, there's the flower, and it comes out of the flower. And then I looked up wheat, I looked up barley, I looked up other things, how the plants look, and they look very distinct than the plant of buckwheat. Then I looked up quinoa flowers. I looked up how do the quinoa pods look, and they look a lot more like buckwheat to me than they look like other grass, other seeds, other grains that are there. So scientifically, they're classified as different, and the plants, in my opinion, look more like buckwheat, look more as a flower seed as opposed to a grass seed. So I take quinoa on Ekadashi, and I recommend you do. Some people will be like, no, but you see, there's different things. Guru and Vaishnavas will give different instructions at different times. Divya Didi Dandavats, you asked, is flaxseed a grain? Look it up again. My distinction is if it's a flower plant, it's okay. I would have to look into that more definitively. As of now, I classify it in my mind in the same place as chia seeds, the same place as buckwheat, and the same place as quinoa, but perhaps there's a little bit more research which is necessary for that. But I think that they are okay. So back to the point of the person that's vomiting because of weakness. I bet they could eat quinoa and cucumber sabji. I'm sure they could do that, right? Cucumbers are good for everybody. And so is quinoa. Quinoa's got to be good for you. And so they should be okay. Really, most of the time when we're practicing bhakti, it's really about choice. How much do we want to serve? How much relationship do you want to make with Vaishnav? And if we try to get all nitty-gritty about the rules and the regulations, we can always evade something, and you can always justify something, you can always do this and that. And that's why Tarka na pratishtanat, Vedanta Sutra says, you cannot establish through debate, but if you have sincerity and proper guru, proper guidance, then all guidance is given there. Now, this webcast went a lot longer than I expected, but there's a lot of people online and a lot of nice questions, so I'm hanging around. But I'm going to end it now. Join the virtual Sangha group. Wait around for your digital Vaishnav calendar that I will let the Vaishnavs know about soon, and I shall see you. Dandavat pranams, Vaishnav, Jaho Jaho. Great to have Sanga and associate with you all on Ekadashi. Share this video so other people can follow Ekadashi, see Ekadashi beyond the potato.